Moment, please. Okay. Mr. Vice Mayor, we are live. It is 9:06.
Thank you and welcome to the Lake Worth pre-agenda meeting on March 22nd, 2023. This is the Vice Mayor covering so far for the Mayor. And could you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mayor Betty Resch is absent. Vice Mayor Christopher McVoy.
Here.
Commissioner Sarah Maliga.
Here.
Hope you're feeling better, Commissioner. Commissioner Kimberly Stokes is absent, and Commissioner Reynaldo Diaz.
Here.
Right. Yeah, I hope Commissioner Malega that you're feeling better. The descriptions didn't sound like you were too great yesterday.
I'm not, which is why I'm not on my camera right now, but I just I wanted to be in the meeting. I did watch on Zoom on YouTube last night meeting.
We want you to get rest. I don't, but thanks for watching in any case.
And Vice Mayor, the mayor did respond. She should be joining shortly.
Okay. Well, does anybody else have things that are burning on their list that they'd like to go?
I did send if I could just go real quick, I did send an email to you, Vice Mayor, Commissioner Stokes and Diaz last night or yesterday. In your offices, I placed bags of pride flags for Sunday. For each of us to have, I think there's 50 in a bag. They do have to be assembled. You have to put the flag on the stick. And I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that theirs were in their office. Selena placed them in your office on your desk.
And I can tell you out of the 200, 100 of them are already assembled last night.
That's awesome.
Actually, I should have a bag of doing it while we're talking. It's like knitting. It's a good thing to do in between.
Yeah, I was able to somehow get all 200 of mine done last night. Special thanks to my girlfriend.
And thank you very much, Sarah, for doing that. It's great and very, very needed at this time.
Yes, sir. And I do know that I think Lauren had spoken to Carmen about each of us taking a shift at the city table. I don't know where that went, Carmen, or what that looks like.
Yeah, I will talk to you. This, as far as the commission taking.
Yes, ma'am.
Shifts? Okay, I wasn't. We'll talk. We'll make it organized.
That would be good because, yeah, I mean, I think this year especially, it's important that we be in full force if we at all can accommodate it in the schedule. Another suggestion, which I'll just throw out there, see people like it. I think it would not be a bad thing. You know how sometimes people walk with a large flag over their shoulders? If we had 5 pride flags, actually, I think I have one. I would be happy to do that in the parade.
I have a pride flag as well. We're gonna wear our shirts that say Lake Worth Beach welcomes all. Dawn and I were, and walk the route like we did last year. I thought was the plan. But yeah, I have a pride flag as well.
All right. So anybody who wants to do that, I think it'd be great if we all 5 did, if we could. I know the mayor was asking last night about whether somebody had a golf cart for her so that at least some of the time she didn't have to walk, which seems reasonable.
I'm sorry, Mr. Vice Mayor. I just want to let everyone know the mayor has arrived.
Okay.
Hi, I'm terribly sorry about that. What this points out what I was getting ready. And I hear the conversation about gay pride. I'm on the board of the Palm Beach County League of Cities, and their board meeting is the 4th Wednesday of every month at 10 o'clock somewhere in the county. So I'm going to respectfully ask that we not today, but that we figure out a way to reschedule, because otherwise I can never be at one or the other. So that's just an aside, and I apologize for being late. Yeah, I don't. I'm hearing the gay pride stuff. I believe I have a big gay pride flag as well. I'm not sure. And I have the t-shirt. I would, the thought of walking all that way, I mean, I guess I could do it if I have to. I'll have an ambulance to take me home. But I can try. If I can't come up with I was thinking a golf cart, then we could all like take turns and ride in it if we get, it's easy to get on and off, but I don't have one at this point, so.
Well, Mayor, we'll work with seeing what we can find.
Okay, okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody, and I'm sorry to have been late. Thank you, Carmen. I was walking out the door to go to this meeting at 10 o'clock that I'm not gonna. So here we are. And so obviously Chris has started the meeting. Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Commissioner Maliga was going down her items that she'd like to
Oh, perfect.
discuss.
Okay, thank you. I'll just sit and be quiet. Commissioner Malega?
That's all I was talking about, was just that the pride flags were there, and I'm asking if we have a schedule of who's gonna work the table.
Right. I don't know. Do we know?
Yeah, I'll follow up with that and get more information about the table, Commissioner, and seeing what you're speaking of, because it sounds like that you want each commissioner to be part of the table.
Yes, I spoke with Lauren about a week ago about this. That's what we did in the years past, is that each commissioner took a turn at the table greeting people who came up to the city's table.
Okay. Well,
How are you feeling, Sarah?
Your cold is the gift that just keeps giving.
My
Oh,
husband
yeah.
agrees with you. They're gonna run down. Yeah, he's dead. He's, on his deathbed. It's horrible.
I was at City Hall. I haven't taken a day off, and I was at City Hall yesterday, and I just got a horrible fever, and the last 24 hours has been really rough.
I'm so sorry. Well,
So
I didn't have a
sorry,
fever,
yeah.
so I don't think I gave that. So who's up next?
Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. The Vice Mayor's phone died, so he'll be back as soon as it's recharged.
Oh, we're a motley crew. Commissioner Diaz, do you have anything this morning for us?
Yeah, speaking of Pride Fest, I was wondering, because this was brought to my attention, but there's nothing on our city website that announces that we're, any information about Pride Fest. And it's probably a little late now, but I feel like in future events, this is clearly one of our bigger events of the year.
Yeah.
I feel like there should be just a massive banner plastered on the front page, and at the very least, helping people where to park and whatnot.
Yeah.
Just wanted
Yeah.
to bring that to everyone's attention.
Well, is it too late if people are looking for information? I mean, it's only Wednesday, a few more days. Could that be arranged?
Hi.
Hi,
It's me.
Lauren.
So I already submitted for it to be on the city calendar, and I'll get a hero up in the next few minutes.
Okay, thank you. Somebody else brought up last night about the town meeting in District 2 and not knowing about it. And I'm, again, getting information out is really hard, but I wonder, how else can we do that? It's on the website, or is it on the website? I think it is.
It is.
I've shared it on Facebook, but maybe we should think ahead when we know these things are coming up. I don't know if people read their utility bills, but that would be another way to get, if we know a date well ahead of time, we could put that in the utility bill as well.
Yeah. Lauren, can you let us know if it's been out on the social media? I know that's what we usually put it out on social media, website. We can place it also on our marquee outside of City Hall. We usually do that.
Hi, I'm sorry. I was on the phone with Keith about the hero. So what were we talking about?
The District 2 Public Forum meeting on March 30th.
Yes, it was published yesterday on all social media, and Ben's working on the sign for the City Hall marquee.
Great.
Lauren, can we have that as a marquee as well?
Yes, I just said Ben's already working on
I'm
it.
sorry, I didn't mean Marquee. I meant Hero.
Yes, I'll ask Keith to do that as well.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, and in the future, let's try to see if we can't get, I mean, it's a challenge to get stuff out, but Ronaldo, I interrupted and I apologize.
Oh,
No
yeah.
problem.
So, yeah, it's all out. And Madam Mayor, just to say, I do agree about having it on the utility bill. The
Mm.
issue with this meeting, we had a very hard time finding a location for District 2 for that date. A lot of facilities were booked up. So yeah, so if we've known, 4 weeks ahead of time where we would have the facility for the meeting, we would have had time to put it on the bill.
So maybe for
Yeah,
the
but
ones
it's been
coming up,
It was a
we can-
challenge.
yeah, maybe for the ones coming up, are we doing this quarterly?
Yes, I've already reached out to Commissioner Stokes about hers because of the challenge we had with District 2. So I've already been in communication with District 3 Commissioner Stokes and trying to start now and finding a location. So
right.
we can, be more prepared in getting the information
Yeah,
out.
because then word of mouth too will help with, if there's time in advance. Okay, what else, Ronaldo?
Yeah, and we should have plenty of notice for mine because I think we have some venues that are pretty
Yes,
dependable and
that's
full.
right. Right.
So
So we're certainly thinking ahead because
yeah,
District 2, we were so disappointed on how tough it was for the location.
Really, that's too bad.
um,
Ronaldo, go ahead.
yeah, I'll keep it light. And so this, we always talk about parking downtown, and one thing that stood out to me recently one night when I was walking around, God love Lake Worth. This is such a unique place, and we seem to have a growing subculture of, let's call them golf carts or low speed vehicles. And I think maybe the time is right, instead of having, because I've seen this at one of my water sampling locations in North Palm Beach. There's a park and they have a separate golf cart low speed vehicle parking lot that they just built. And I was thinking maybe we should explore that opportunity to find a spot to create, smaller parking spaces. And I think if everyone's kind of on board, the place to do that would be on J Street in between Lake and Lucerne, right in front of, Old Fountains department store, Island Water Sports, whatever we want to call it. And maybe it could even be, since it's a one-way street, like a back end angle situation. And I would be curious, to see on that little strip, how many of these spots could be fit there. So that, we don't have a golf cart taking up like a full parallel parking spot. And plus they give them a kind of a little spot to coalesce together. So I wanted to hear everyone's thoughts on that.
I think it's a great idea.
I think it's a great idea too, and I think it should be part of our mobility study that we just paid, is that they include that along with handicap spots that I've been asking for 2 years. There are no,
We have none
Yeah,
downtown,
none.
none,
Yep.
zero.
Yeah.
I've been begging for them to put a spot in because everybody fights for the one that I have in my parking lot. And then, you have to tell people, I'm sorry, this is for our business. And they're like, well, I'm going down the street and I'm handicapped. I'm like, okay, but it's for our guest. And it's an uphill battle. So I think that those are two things that we really need to let the people who are doing the mobility study know that we want to incorporate.
Mhm. Yeah, we have a couple in the lots, but not many.
Yeah. I know they're looking at let's call them new technologies, right? Another big one is like electric bikes, and I think as days goes on, and I feel like this definitely goes on, the electric golf carts or the LSVs. I mean, that's part of the reason why they're getting popular, right? We live in a really mobile city, so I think we should be addressing that. I'm pretty sure your spot in your lot, and then there's a couple spots in the lot across from the post office are the only ADA spots.
No, there's
Right.
behind my building, there's two. In the lot on K
Right.
Street, there's two, but I mean, that's
In
4
the
spots. And then the open lot, there's a couple behind.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's what I mean. They're in the side lots, but there's nothing in between Lake and Lucerne.
Right, on the
Yeah,
street.
so which is you know, yeah, we need to do better on that 100%.
Yeah, speaking of ADA, this is interesting. A couple of years ago, I have an ADA sticker and placard, and I was parked and I got a ticket for parking for more than 4 hours downtown. Everywhere in the world, it's double the time. If you have an ADA, if you have a handicap sticker, you get double the time. And when I talked to the guy, I paid the ticket, but when I talked to the guy, he goes, no, it was a policy decision not to extend it double time. And I've yet to hear anyone tell me where that policy decision. Sometimes, I don't know, I've not heard it. So I would, at some point, if we'd like to look at that, I'd appreciate it because, if you, and I'm the least of the disabled, but if somebody's in a wheelchair or seriously disabled, to have them move every 4 hours if they're at a meeting or something, it doesn't work.
Yeah,
Um,
that might be a good Captain Bear question because I believe that would be a uniform traffic citation. Like I can't imagine anyone deciding to take that time limit away.
Yeah,
That's
I
a pretty
was like,
heartless thing to do. So
when
yeah,
I paid my $40 or whatever.
yeah.
So, oh, the golf cart thing. Yeah, I mean, all of a sudden there's a lot of, and I have to tell you, I love the golf carts. I think they're quirky and lovely. I'm waiting for someone to get hurt because there's no seat belts. People drive them very fast, along with these little scooters. I mean, has anyone else noticed kids on scooters with or bikes going down Lake Avenue on their back wheels or Lucerne? I've gotten some comments from citizens and I've noticed it myself. I was coming down Lucerne Avenue one day in the evening and there were some kids on those bikes with no lights, dark clothes. I almost hit one and it freaked me out. So I don't know
Yeah.
what do we do about
The-
that?
Yeah, the scooters and bikes are definitely difficult to manage, but I think it's really important to highlight, that you have golf carts for golf courses and you have the LSVs, the low speed vehicles, and those have to go through a somewhat rigorous registration process where they have to have, lights, they have to have the triangular reflector
Right.
thing. And so we want to, however, whatever the next steps are, and I guess that's the question to create these parking spots, we want to make sure it's for LSVs and not not golf carts that are not going to be properly safe on our streets.
Yeah, I think the people that I don't know, that's a whole,
Yeah.
it's a new phenomenon in Lake Worth that people have enough money to have a golf cart.
I like it because with all the lights on it, it kind of reminds me, if you remember, there's a movie, not if you remember, not that I was alive back then, but there was a movie from the 60s and I can't remember what it was called, but it was about like this group of people with Vespa scooters and they had like, a dozen mirrors and all these lights on them and they're really like funky. It kind of reminds me of that. It's like a subculture growing.
My nephew's part of the sub, they have moped rallies. They go all over and just camp out
Yeah.
and with mopeds.
Madam Mayor?
Yep.
The Assistant City Manager has.
I see Juan's hand up and I am, of course, along with the rest of us in deep grief, but about Mr. Ruse, but Juan, what's up?
Hey, Madam Mayor, now just a little bit of history on the handicap. If I remember, when the beach was redeveloped, we had issues when we first reopened because there's limited handicap parking spots at the top where you park. And there were some frequent users of those spots and they were being used for 6, 7, 8, 9 hours. I guess they really enjoyed the beach. So if I remember, it was revised and it's kind of a catch-all. You can't just do it by property. And that's kind of where it was limited within, what we're allowed to limit it to. But if you do it, just remember you just got to keep all the properties in the city in mind when you're discussing it. And then the issue with the handicap parking spots in the downtown.
Yeah.
Yes, it should be part of the mobility plan, but more importantly, it's got to be part of completing the parking study because for every parking spot you change, you're taking away. So our issue has always been, or perceived issue, is the lack of parking capacity. And then, so they go hand in hand. You can't really do one without the other when you're doing, when you're thinking about the mobility stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, certainly parking will be part of the mobility study. I'm sure that in our conversations with WGI and Lisa that all of us have raised that, but the parking needs to be in the broader context of changing technologies and so on, so that it's thought through. But thank you for the heads up, and helpful to know the history with the beach. We certainly, need to factor that in, but we got to find a way to have the same length of time that other communities have.
Mr. Ruse, anything else, Ronaldo?
Nope, that's it from me for now.
Okay. Sarah, no, Sarah's done. Chris,
Yeah, I apologies that my phone ran out just as you were coming on. I went back off because the phone died, but I'm back.
I won't take it personally.
All right. And I'm glad that I was a little worried about your health when you weren't there, but I'm glad that you seem to
Thank
be
you.
doing
Yeah.
fine. So District 2, I believe, got mentioned that we're doing the district forum at what used to be the Scottish Rites up by the water towers, now the Haitian Peniel Baptist Church, 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock on Thursday, March 30th. See you there. And I'll give a little summary of some of the things we've been doing, and then the majority of it will be to just listen to folks and their concerns. Do we normally extend the invitation that anybody in the city is welcome to come, but we encourage, of course, the particular district to be
Yes, sir.
especially something to that
All are
effect?
welcome. All are
All are
welcome.
welcome.
Okay, good. Yeah, that would be my inclination. Couple issues, during the Gulfstream discussions, which got pretty lively and had a lot of public input, we got a little overwhelmed with public comment, and we made a decision to limit on the website to 10. I was never comfortable with that, and I'm still not comfortable with it. And particularly because we have a commitment as a commission to really encourage public involvement, community involvement. And we know that there are plenty of working parents in our community that are not able to come in person, or it's pretty awkward to do so, but they need to be able to be heard. I would like us to vote soon on lifting that 10 limit, that only the first 10 get comments on public on the website get read, and either get rid of the limit altogether or make it some more reasonable number like 25. So
Well,
I'd like,
people
would-
have the option. Go ahead.
that wouldn't be a vote now because this is a non-voting meeting, but I would like us, and I don't think we have to do a formal resolution or anything. I think we can just say, does the majority want to change that policy? And if we do, let's do it.
People have the option, though, if they don't want to come in person, they have the option, if they want to speak, they can be on Zoom, and then there's no limit to those people. It's as though they were here in person. I remember, we now end our meetings at what, 11 is the last, 10, 11? We spent over an hour listening to public comment at a meeting. That is, I understand what you're saying, and yes, we are inclusive, and I'm all for that. But I also think, I check the public comment before every meeting, and so I read what the folks have said. If somebody has, I think if they have a computer, they can, like the rest of people, sit and wait and make their public comment in person. They don't have, they can sit at home with a beer and a t-shirt and do it. But I think that our time is valuable in the sense that an hour or hour and a half of public comment, pretty much, one camp or the other, I'm for this, I'm against this is why. Is that the best use of our time?
Well, let's bring it up for a discussion or vote at one of the upcoming commission meetings. I asked that we do that, and, we can see what everybody feels.
How much have you had so much feedback about it that it's an issue?
I've regularly had feedback about it, yes.
Madam Clerk, how often do we get more than that want to speak? I mean, that want to be read.
It depends on the issue, but
Right.
you know, it's not like every meeting that there are an hour's worth of public comment.
Right.
So
Well,
normally they all get read, mostly.
Yeah.
Bear in mind also, there's a time limit. They have to be received at least 15 minutes before the meeting. I would actually like to change that to an hour before the meeting, because 15 minutes before the meeting, I have so much going on trying to get the meeting, you know,
Yeah.
with preparing the meeting, for me to constantly be checking if public comment has come in is a little stressful, because I want to make sure obviously everybody is heard. So
I think
would
that's
like to change that
reasonable.
to an hour before. So maybe is there like consensus to have a discussion regarding public comment on an upcoming meeting?
Sure,
Sure.
let's revisit the things we've already done. Sure. Okay, we'll bring it up.
The only other thing I had was, on the upcoming utility meeting on a week from yesterday, I had asked for 2 items to be on. They're on as discussion. And they relate to a point that Director Liberty has made several times, that for rooftop solar, communities can choose what maximum installation size they want to do. And what I'm seeing worldwide is that people are going past it used to be usually under 10 kilowatts. Now you often see ones that are in the 10 to 20 kilowatts. Florida has a tiered system, and we would move from tier 1, which has a 10 kilowatt cap, to the next tier up, tier 2, that would allow people to go larger. So that's coming up on the thing for discussion. So that's something you have strong feelings
Well,
about.
I would
Research.
ask Mr. Liberty about that, yeah.
And I would say, let's make sure that in addition to Mr. Liberty's opinions, we should make sure what national policy, how it coincides with national policy and with best practices countrywide. So he's
Well-
already indicated that we as a commission, it's a policy decision. We can do whatever we like on it. And so he's indicated that a number of times. Anyhow, that's on there. The other one that I added on was the current way that when somebody comes in and wants to do rooftop solar, our permitting process says you've got to give us the last 12 months, us being the city, the last 12 months of your electric bills, and you can size your system based on your usage. That does not make sense to me. And I've had a number of residents indicate that doesn't make sense to them either, because we are in a national process of increasing electrification. We're encouraging that. We want people to do things more electrically because we're moving to more renewable energy. So that's the cleanest way to fuel those things. So your usage can be expected to go up from what you were doing. So it doesn't make sense to limit people's sizing based on their past usage. You want to encourage more electrification, not less. So I'd like us to revisit that. Personally, I think people should, that's a personal decision. If you want to put solar on your roof, you decide how much money or investment you want to make, and you make it whatever you want to make it. So that's on the discussion also.
Okay, and Ed, I would ask you to I need to meet with you about that before Tuesday, if that's okay.
Yes, that's fine. Be glad to meet with you.
Thank you. I mean, again, it's fine to have policies, but they have to have policies based on what fits our city. So I just want to, connect with you to make sure that, you're a utilities director. So I would look for guidance from you on any of these questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else, Chris?
Nope.
Okay, I don't really have much today. I am very, very sad, of course, to hear about Juan leaving us. I'm speechless, and I hope the best for Juan, but what a huge loss to our city. So I don't know what else to say about that. Other things, I really don't have much today, honestly. It's, last week was a very interesting week. Sarah and I are hopefully both going up in a couple of weeks again for the Florida League of Cities group, which is the legislative stuff, which is where I'm on the economic development, which is mobility plans are our priority. And I had my meeting yesterday with WGI and, learning more and more about mobility plans and just, what that entails. I'm sure we're all meeting with them. Coming to the, I said it last night and I think that we need a parking structure downtown. I think that it shouldn't be a challenge to get a parking structure down, it shouldn't be a challenge to find a parking space. But that's again, part of the bigger picture. Also some kind of trolley going around and that's one of the things I mentioned to them is I would, how do we get people if they don't have a car to get moving around the city? And really downtown, there's probably, there's a few reasons to want to come downtown, Publix, CVS, Walgreens, that sort of thing. And then at night for recreation. Anything else that I can think of? I am under the impression that the Gulfstream drawings are being prepared to be submitted. So there's progress on that.
Madam Mayor,
Yeah,
excuse me. There's one item I've noticed, and we don't have to talk about it today, but what I'm noticing that we have a couple of commissioners, yourself and another commissioner, having a conflict with the pre-agenda meeting date, because I see now that you have a conflict. I know Commissioner Stokes has a conflict as well. So I think we need to think about, do we need to change the day or the time, or just a discussion about pre-agenda in general and see
Okay,
what
yeah.
plan. So
Yeah.
that we can make sure we can continue to have full participation.
Maybe we could put that as a discussion on an agenda. So we
Yes.
can- Yeah, because I don't want to be conflicted out every month.
I can add it to the April 21st agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything, and, I was thinking about this last night, we had a lot of questions for, William about the things that we did last night, and sometimes I think it might be helpful if there's something coming up on the agenda to use part of these meetings as kind of a general 10-minute, here our department's coming up with this idea at the next agenda or 2 agendas from now. Here's the 25 words or less, just to give us a background so that when we read it, it's not cold. We have some understanding of what's coming up. These meetings are not just for us. I try to see them for staff to use them as well, in terms of helping educate us so that we have some understanding before we go. Because if they meet, I would say, well, we can all meet individually, but then you've got, again, staff time is precious. And if I want to meet with William and everybody wants to meet with William, that's 5 meetings of an hour each. That's a day of his life. And I'm just using that as an example, or Jamie or anybody else. So I'm just wondering if that would be something that staff, Carmen, might consider, just giving us a synopsis, on the second meeting in April, this is coming up. Here's what it means. If you have any questions, just to give us some background before we read these cold, before the meetings, it might answer some questions before we have them.
Sure,
And I
yeah.
would, it would give us more interaction with the staff as well, which, again, they're very important people.
I think that that'll be very useful for us, because sometimes we're thinking about bringing something, and it's good to have you all together to get
Right.
consensus or thoughts that we need to know before we pursue that issue.
Right, exactly. How
I
do we
think that'll
think
be
about
very
doing them?
helpful.
Okay, that would be
Yeah,
great.
and so I think there'll be very good conversation on the 21st as we kind of reevaluate pre-agenda meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know why I don't have anything. My mind I pulled a blank. I've infected
That's
my husband,
okay.
my
That's
husband and
okay.
my sister. I'm getting over this cold. I'm looking forward to this weekend. Yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be another great weekend.
Speaking of which, can I just point out that
Please, we have time.
I am super happy or really appreciative of last night's emergency resolution, because, it's something that is, and I'm glad Julie was
Yeah.
able to be there, because it's part of our city's history. It's at its core, going back decades, to be a very tolerant, accepting place. And Florida is a tough place to live these days, and it feels good that despite all the attacks on home rule, and we're, as a municipality, there's less and less that we can do. But the one thing that they can not take away from us is our ability to use our position as a pulpit, right? And speak out on these issues. And I think last night we sent a really strong message.
Yeah, I hope it's heard. I hope that thing just dies its natural death, but the 6-week abortion thing is going through, so I don't even know. what to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
There's
I would-
another one with the bad water bill. I think it's 1120, which would have huge repercussions on our growth management policy. So yeah, there's so many bad bills.
And
It's like a boat with hundreds of holes in it, and we're trying to plug them all.
the one that we haven't talked about, Ed, I'm sure you're aware of this, is the one where they want to make it limit our ability to use electric funds for general fund purposes. That's cuckoo. I mean, that's okay, let's put us out of business. Ed, do you have any thoughts on that?
I do have some thoughts. It is troubling. I don't know how up to speed folks are. I can give a brief update now,
Please.
or we can do
Yeah.
it on Tuesday. So there were two bills that were introduced, both going after the issue fundamentally of general fund transfers in between utilities, not just electric utilities, but water and gas utilities, as well as electric. And most people are not aware there's a lot of water utilities that are municipal across the state, but there's also a whole bunch of natural gas utilities that are municipal across the state, and of course 30 plus municipal electric utilities. So the two bills, one focused in the Senate more on placing, if I understand them correctly, placing these utilities under the regulation of the Public Service Commission, effectively transferring oversight responsibility to the Public Service Commission. What that would look like was not well defined. Obviously, as we all know, the investor-owned utilities like Florida Power and Light, Tampa Electric Company, Duke, Florida Public Utilities are all regulated by the Public Service Commission, and as well as a number of natural gas utilities. We, of course, are generally speaking not. They have some ability to look at rate structures, but they tend to stay out of the municipal business completely. The other bill focused more on getting very specific about limiting transfers to general fund. And there's a lot of thoughts about why that's become a concern over the years. This has come up many times before and has always died in committee, and I don't think it's actually made it all the way to a full vote. This year, it seems to have a little bit more traction. The latest information that I have, if I interpret the emails correctly, is that the Senate bill, which would have called for Public Service Commission regulation, appears to be folding itself into the House bill, which would limit the percentage of the transfer. That at face value doesn't seem like a big problem for us, other than the fact that it's, of course, infringes upon the city's ability to have home rule over its business, which is a electric utility in our case. However, you peel back the layers a little bit more, and there's some issues that could become problematic for the city in the future. For example, they propose capping the transfer to the general fund at what we would call the average of the return on equity of the regulated utility. So what does that mean?
Right.
So, a return on equity is the investor's return or the utility's return on the equity that it has put into the business. And utilities typically operate with a combination of debt and equity. And in very, very round numbers, that's usually 50%, but that's not that important. And we have debt and equity in our own homes, for example. If you have a mortgage and you have equity in your home, you have debt and you have equity. So what the bill proposes in its current format was that the general fund transfer would be limited to the average of the allowed return on equity for the investor-owned utilities in the state. So the investor-owned utilities, of course, are regulated by the PSC, and the PSC sets an allowable return, basically how much profit they can make on their equity that they put into their business, shareholders' equity. And That's for FPL 10.7%, for TECO it's 10%, Duke 9.85, and Florida Public Utilities 9%. You don't have to remember those numbers, but those are numbers that are set by the Public Service Commission. What this bill would do would say that you take the average of those returns, which is effectively 9.88%. So that would limit our transfer to the general fund at 9.88%. I believe our transfer today is limited, is about 8%. It could be as high as 10%, but I think it's been operated at about 8%. The devil's in the details, though, because they then introduced an adjustment to that, and that number would then be reduced by the percentage of customers that we serve or utility serves outside of our city limits. So for those of you, I'm sure you're aware, we serve customers in the unincorporated county and also in portions of the village of Palm Springs. The total number of electric customers that we have outside of our city limits is 28.75 of our total customer base is outside of city limits. The way that this rule is written, if up to 15% of your customers are outside the city limits, the allowed rate of return or the allowed transfer of 9.88 would be reduced to 8.38. So if up to 15%, or let's see, if 15 to 30, I'm interpreting incorrectly. If 15 to 30% of your customers are outside the territorial limits, you would be limited to 8.3875. Yeah, let's call it 8.3 or 8.4. Our mathematician is not on today. I'll round up 8.4. So we'd be limited to 8.4, which is not a huge risk right now because we're operating at about 8%, but it does take away the city commission's ability to increase that number above that 8% if it chose to do so. More problematic is that we're at 28.75. So once you cross the 30% number, it drops to 6.88. So the general fund transfer will drop to 6.88. We're hovering at 28.75. We have a pretty good feel for how much development is happening in the city, but we don't have a very good feel for how much development is coming in the unincorporated county and also in the village of Palm Springs. And we haven't done the math based on the developments that we know about to see, are we close to that? But suffice it to say, if we're at 28.75 and the limit is potentially 30, before we start having to trim back our transfers, that's a problem for us. So that is working its way through committee. I know that the full weight of the Florida Municipal Electric Association, which we're members of and I'm an officer of, is behind seeking to protect the municipalities from being subject to this. Although, as I've said, the momentum seems to grow year after year towards some form of oversight over how much money is transferred out of utilities, whether they're gas, electric, or water on the municipal side, into the city's general funds. There is a further exclusion from this if the particular municipal utility has an independent elected board that governs it. So similar to an authority, but not where the board members of the authority are appointed by the city commission or the mayor, but they are freely elected. There's only one that we're aware of that operates as a completely freely elected board of a municipal utility, and that's Keys Energy Service. So that's the lower part of Keys. They have a fully elected utility board. This city has not had a utility board, I believe, since the 1980s, when up until then it operated as a utility authority, and then it was dissolved and absorbed by the city. So it's been a department of the city since then. So we would not be eligible for that exclusion. So this is a threat to the ability to transfer dollars to the general fund, should it be passed, and it's not in the best interest of the city to have this passed. That's the high
Thank
level.
you. So essentially, we would go from 8 point something. If we go over 30, which it sounds like we're close to, we would only be able to transfer 6% of our monies back into the general fund.
It would be 6.8875, so call it, about 6.9%.
Right.
What has not been addressed, that I'm aware of, they strictly use the term transfer to general fund, are things like shared service charges, because if you add up the shared service fees, obviously that takes us above the current planning threshold of 8% that's used. And also direct salary support. There are numbers of people in various departments around the city that a portion of the salary is allocated to the electric utility. They don't appear to have addressed that issue. They're strictly looking at the general fund transfer number.
Is there any, I mean, other than they just are attacking home rule on all fronts, does anyone in your world guess why they're trying to do this?
There are concerns around the state, and there's one, I would say infamous and notorious story of a legislator whose flight, either his flight or his wife's flight into Tallahassee, was delayed in landing because there was a power outage at the airport, and that got them upset. This happened a few years ago, and the thought was, well, they must not be investing in their infrastructure to maintain reliability. That's why the power's out at the airport. I think it had to do more with the failure of the generator at the airport. I mean, that could be just a barroom story, but over the years there have been concerns that utilities have been short of funding to invest in infrastructure because funds were diverted to various cities' general funds. That's a common theme throughout the state of alleged concern. In our particular case, well, one could have argued that at some point in the past. That's certainly not the case today, because under our Series 2020 and Series 22 bond issues to support SHRIP, we are in fact investing very large sums of money to support customers that are beyond the territorial limits. There's also just generally been a concern that customers who are served who are outside of city limits do not vote for the legislators who are in fact determining those transfer amounts. So they're not represented. And if they were served by an investor-owned utility, which would be the alternative, they would of course be under the jurisdiction of the Public Service Commission, which would be looking out for them. That's the argument on the other side. I think for our purposes, this is a difficult pill to swallow from a home rule standpoint.
Right.
The city is the owner of this business and does have the rights to take transfers to its general fund from the proceeds of the business. And so there's a difficult line to carve there.
Would it be fair to say, and thank you, Director Liberty, for that clarification, it's very helpful. Would it be fair to say that in dividing the investment that we've made in strengthening the utility, and I don't know quite how one would measure it, but that the amount that we've done outside of the city is certainly on par, if not greater than what we've done within the city of Lake Worth? Would that be a accurate assessment?
I think that would be a fair assessment, Vice Mayor. Certainly in the projects done to date under SHRIP during my tenure, a significant amount of the bond money is headed towards supporting those customers out west. So for example, I would say probably portions of the 7th Avenue North substation would serve out west. Certainly all the work that we're doing at Canal, both on the incoming transmission line and the new substation, those two projects alone are probably close to $20 million that's being invested out there, and the hardening of the circuits that we've done out in that area as well. So that would certainly be true. By the way, I should point out that on the water side, I believe the water percentage is around 13% and change of the water department's customers are what we would call extraterritorial. That doesn't mean you're out in space, but extraterritorial than extraterrestrial. But so I think this is less of a concern for water at the moment, because they're while they're below the 15%. So you would not apply this to all, it's not a flat number for all utilities. It would be one number for electric, for example, because we're approaching close to the 30%. It would be a different number for water.
Thank you.
it's really visible driving on Lake Worth Road, and you know, the investment that goes out west. I mean, it's
And out
they're
10th.
they're taking, you know, the home rule power group. It's like with this bill specifically, they're taking the home rule power grab into the literal sense, where they're literally trying to grab our power customers. So yeah, what about
I think the concern in the legislature, and we don't know how widespread this is, there was the votes for it, but the concern is that you know, there's customers who are not being fairly served or fairly represented. And they're not talking about diverting these funds to the state. They're talking about, you know, limiting the ability to transfer it. So in theory, then, if you've limited the ability to transfer it, it means that those dollars will remain in the utility. You know, that's speculation as to what, you know, the other side of the argument is. I think it's important for us, especially for all of you, through the channels that you have with elected representatives, to make your opinions known. As an industry, we are very well represented by the Florida Municipal Electric Association and the lobbying team there. I will actually be flying to Tallahassee on Monday morning for a board meeting, which will include a very detailed briefing with our lobbyists. At this point, I don't plan on meeting. I don't have any scheduled meetings with legislators. If something like that did come up, I of course would let Carmen know. But I think it's most important that you, as the electeds, communicate directly with the elected representatives in Tallahassee to let your feelings be known.
Would it be possible for you to convey to us, and thank you for that encouragement, would it be possible for either you or FMEA to indicate which are the best legislators to target? I suspect that the ones that represented us are probably already on board, but there may be ones that are on the right committees or things that, and maybe our lobbyist, Richard Pinsky, might have some insight to that as well. I don't know.
Definitely, we did provide through Carmen very detailed explanations together with, I believe, with sample letters.
Okay, I was going to ask for a sample letter.
Yeah, I believe sample letters were written, if I remember correctly. I have to find it on my emails, but I'm pretty sure I forwarded those on to Carmen, which with specific, you know, language and who they should be addressed to.
I've been passing on the updates from Director Liberty. I'm not sure if I saw the letters, Ed, but we'll pull those out.
Okay.
If you could, that would be great.
I'll recheck to make sure that I did send them. The other issue that's floating around out there, which is one to watch. It's not a direct concern to us, but it does affect Gainesville Regional Utilities, which is a municipal, obviously serving the Gainesville area. And what is at risk there is that the local legislator is very concerned about what's happened with that utility, with its cost structure and the significant debt that has accumulated in very, very high rates. A number of bad investment or bad decisions that were made with respect to some renewable energy projects that they got involved with, specifically a trash burning plant over the years, and how that contract wound up. They're being pressured, and this could in fact happen. It's certainly possible that they will lose control of that utility, and it would be transferred to an independent board appointed by the governor. It doesn't specify which particular governor, just that those board seats for that utility would be filled by a governor in the future. I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but that is one of the things that's happening that affects the municipal utility industry as a whole. And that's an interesting case to watch. We're nowhere near that type of a situation. I know we don't always agree on everything that we should do, but we're nowhere near the situation that Gainesville is looking at, with upwards of $1 billion in debt as a utility that was incurred by successive utility authority boards. They have a separate authority there, but that's just one to watch and see how that works out.
An authority board would be like citizens on like a board.
Correct, and the board would govern the utility and make all of the decisions.
Wow.
You know, just as, for example, the third meeting of the month is with you folks. in an authority, that meeting would take place with a utility board. And the utility board would approve or disapprove and set policy for what they want the utility to do. Now, only in the case of the lower Keys Energy, is that board actually elected by the public. The other authorities are typically appointed
That's
by
a
a
horrible,
city commissioner, mayor.
that's a bad idea. Because it's, electric is not, should we demolish this old house? It's so much more expansive than that. Thank, anything else from your front that we should talk about before Tuesday?
No, I think that covers the legislative issues, just to be aware of. Obviously, make your votes count, make your voices count.
Yeah, the letters would be great instead of having to reinvent, invent them. I wouldn't know what to say except don't do that. Please don't do that.
Yeah.
So that's helpful. Any other staff that we've got any input from? Anybody? Carmen?
Not at this time. It is 10:01, Madam Mayor.
Oh, it is 10:01. All right, now I'm not going to the meeting at 10 o'clock and I've got a 10:30 Zoom hearing, so I'll be here for a while. Thank you, everybody. I see a lot of folks on that just came on. Thank you very much. We read that thing last night about the Lord's Place, but I know from personal experience that we're having some issues on J Street with the Lord's Place. They sublet an apartment across the street from my sister. Oh, sorry for them. That it's been a constant drug dealing hooker. The neighbors, the woman it's a duplex, and the woman that rents the other one is trying to raise her daughter. And just, it's a constant, and we're having we're not getting as much action from the Lord's Place to fix it as my sister now is on pretty much constant contact with the head of the Lord's Place. But we need to, it's wonderful to have these programs, but we also need to not allow our residents to be abused by them. And I've gotten some emails from the lady down 9th Avenue says something. I have to look, and the same thing, some things that are happening. And, like I said, Lord's Place and Goodwill are wonderful, but not, I could not see that happening in Boca. We need to not be the people that accept a lot of stuff that other people won't accept. Another thing too, again, I live right downtown. I love the church by the Glades. They did the Saturday feeding, for the families, and now it's pretty constant. And now I've got, a block away, I've got a constant shower trailer. And it does increase the amount of people in my neighborhood. Now that those houses have been demolished, that's going to help it a little bit because a lot of them were staying there. But it's a concern to some of my neighbors that we have become sort of the epicenter of the homeless camps, homeless services in Lake Worth. And I want to speak hopefully with Tom or somebody about it, because it's can't we share the wealth of that? And also the other thing too is now that we have those houses demolished, it was a shame that the timing was bad for the street painting festival, that they were sort of half down. But I spoke with William yesterday because again, parking is an issue, but apparently the zoning for that second half of between J and K Street is not zoned for parking. So right now, all we can do is, or the CRA can do is plant, make them look right. But it seems like a terrible waste of space right downtown where we could use the parking. So that's something I'm going to be asking about later. So, yeah, but the shower trailers have become a permanent fixture now, a block away from my house, which, none of you in different districts are experiencing that. And it's not really fair to my neighborhood. So hopefully we can figure something out about that. Not to be unsympathetic, but reality is reality. So have a wonderful day, everybody. Do we need a motion to adjourn?
You have a wonderful day.
No, Madam Mayor, we do not.
Sarah, I hope you feel
Take
better.
care.
Don't hate me too much.
No.
My husband does right now, but that's okay. He'll get over it.